risks right now moving into retirement.
Welcome to Barry's Bites. Please join our host, attorney and financial advisor Chris Barry.
So I saw this thing about kind of current risks as it relates to retirement right now, and a couple things that kind of stood out. So the possibility of outliving the money, suffering investment losses, dealing with inflation, facing tax increases, and potential for future reduction of Social Security benefits. So I'll tackle each one of these one at a time. So the possibility of outliving your money, really what we're talking about there is we're talking about like longevity risk. People are living longer than ever these days. And one of the goals, like as an elder law attorney and certified financial planner, is to make sure that your money lasts at least as long as you do. And with regards to the longevity risk, it expands on any other risk. So the longer you live, the more you have a chance for long-term care costs. So we need to protect against long-term care costs and that nursing home and Medicaid spend down. The longer you live, the more we have to worry about like taxes going up, especially if you have pre-tax accounts. The longer you live, we need to worry about like market volatility. So we need to make sure that this money lasts as long as you do. So that's probably the number one risk, is just longevity risk. Longevity risk really is like the fuel for every other risk. And so the fact that people are living longer than ever, I think that's something that we need to take into account. And the big thing from an investment standpoint is understanding that the way you invest when you're 30 is different than when you're 60 or 70 or 80, because it's less of an accumulation phase and it's more of preservation and distribution phase. And that's where kind of creating an income plan of how are we going to use these assets to make sure the money lasts as long as possible while protecting against the risks of things like long-term care and taxes. It brings it all together. And that's why coupling legal, financial, and tax planning all under kind of one overall plan, I think really is the way to go these days. And that's really what we try to do at Castle Wealth Group. The second thing, suffering from investment losses. The big concern is what we call sequence of return risk. So the idea is that as you move into retirement, you're going to have to start drawing on these assets. And so the way that you invest when you're 30 in an accumulation phase where you just want to accumulate as much as possible is very different than when now you have to start drawing on these assets. Because if we're drawing on assets that are going down because the market's dropping, we don't have the time to make it up like you did when you're 30. It's the difference between an accumulation phase where you're just trying to save and accumulate as much as possible versus what is that distribution and preservation phase. And that's where we're looking to more things that offer safety, maybe principal protection. The idea is we're not swinging for home runs all the time anymore. Now it's about swinging for singles and doubles. We want to keep up with inflation, see our money grow versus investing in Bitcoin or something like that. So again, investment losses are much more of an issue as you get near retirement because of sequence of return risk. And this is a big one, dealing with inflation. Government says that inflation is going down, but if you look at the cost of eating out, you look at the cost of a hamburger, everything is more than what it used to be. And so we want to make sure that your money is at least keeping up with inflation. And especially with where interest rates are right now, if you have a lot of money just sitting in cash, not even a high yield savings account, cash, you're not even keeping up with inflation. Right now, we have high yield savings accounts that are paying over 5% versus if you have $100,000 or 200, or I've seen $500,000 or more just sitting in cash, understand you're not even keeping up with inflation. So we're calling that going broke safely and slowly. There are ways to protect that principal, but still at least keep up with inflation. That might be high yield savings accounts or treasury bills. Next, tax increases. I think taxes are one of the biggest risks and biggest opportunities these days just because of the current tax laws. The Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was passed in 2017 and it runs from 2018 to 2025. And unless it's extended, understand your taxes are going up 3 to 5%. So especially if you have like $250,000 or more of retirement accounts, you should be looking at some type of IRA exit strategy of paying the taxes sooner rather than later in a strategic way. And also understand we're about to tip $35 trillion worth of debt. So what is the government going to do? Are they going to print more money? That would lead to more of an inflation issue. Are they going to cut spending? Neither side cuts spending. They just spend on different things. Or are they going to have to raise taxes maybe even more in the future? And understand if taxes go up 10%, the value of like your pre-tax accounts, like your IRAs and 401ks, those automatically drop 10%. And that represents 10% of your working years. So I think taxes are one of the biggest risks and biggest opportunities. We just sat down with some clients. We put together a tax plan of looking at the different tax brackets and annually getting up to a certain tax bracket, pulling that money out, paying the tax and investing it somewhere else. And we're able to put a lot more into their portfolio and then a lot more into what they're leaving to the kids tax-free, the next generation. Last one, reduction of Social Security benefits. if you're near or taking Social Security right now, I don't see them reducing your benefit because there's so many people that are relying just on Social Security. And so if they're to cut that, I think the government's creating a lot more problems. So I think what they're going to do is they're going to push back Social Security retirement age from 67 to maybe 70 or even later in the future. But I don't see them like cutting Social Security for people who are already receiving Social Security, just because I think there's so much of the population that all they're receiving and relying upon for income in retirement is Social Security.